There was once a road that meant more than pavement. It was more than highways, gas stations, and old roadside motels. It was a promise of freedom, a promise of movement, a promise that somewhere ahead, life could be better. That road was Route 66. For millions of Americans, Route 66 was not simply a highway. It was a symbol of hope, adventure, and the American spirit itself. It stretched across the heart of the nation like a living thread, connecting small towns, big dreams, family memories, and generations of travelers searching for something more. From Chicago to Santa Monica, Route 66 carried stories. It carried families escaping hardship during the Great Depression. It carried soldiers returning home after World War II. It carried honeymooners, truck drivers, dreamers, musicians, and restless young people chasing the horizon. And for a few shining decades, Route 66 became the most famous road in America. Today, many parts of it are quiet. Some are abandoned. Some have been swallowed by modern interstates. But the memory remains. Because Route 66 was never just a road. It was America in motion. To understand why Route 66 became legendary, we have to go back to the 1920s. America was changing fast. Cars were no longer a luxury for the wealthy. They were becoming part of everyday life. Families were buying automobiles, businesses were expanding, and people wanted better roads to connect the country. At that time, traveling across multiple states was difficult. Roads were often inconsistent, poorly marked, and sometimes disappeared into dirt or mud. The country needed a better system. In 1926, the U.S. government officially established U.S. Route 66. It would run for more than 2,400 miles, connecting Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. It began in Chicago and ended at the Pacific Ocean in Santa Monica. It was not the longest road in America, but it became the most famous. Almost immediately, Route 66 took on a life of its own. People called it the Mother Road. Writer John Steinbeck would later make that nickname famous in his novel The Grapes of Wrath, where struggling families traveled west in search of survival during the Dust Bowl years. For many Americans during the 1930s, Route 66 was not about adventure. It was about survival. Farmers from Oklahoma, Texas, and surrounding states were losing everything. Drought and dust storms destroyed crops. Families packed what little they had into old trucks and headed west toward California, hoping to find work and a fresh start. The road became their lifeline. It saw tears, exhaustion, and uncertainty. But it also carried hope. And that emotional connection became part of its identity forever. Then came World War II. America transformed again. Factories along Route 66 worked around the clock. Military convoys moved across the country. Soldiers traveled its roads. Industry grew stronger. Small towns along the highway became busy with workers, travelers, and new opportunity. After the war, something remarkable happened. America entered one of its most prosperous eras. The 1950s brought economic growth, suburban life, family vacations, and a new love affair with the open road. This was the true golden age of Route 66. Families packed into big station wagons. Children sat in the back seat with comic books and sandwiches. Fathers unfolded paper maps at gas stations. Mothers planned stops at diners and roadside attractions. Vacation itself became part of the American dream. And Route 66 became the road of that dream. There were no smartphones, no GPS, no online reservations. Just signs, maps, neon lights, and instinct. Every town offered something different. A giant cowboy statue. A dinosaur made of concrete. A mysterious roadside museum. A family-owned diner with the best pie in 3 states. The road rewarded curiosity. Travel was slower then. And maybe because of that, people remembered it more deeply. Children remember the smell of gasoline mixed with summer air. They remember postcards, motel swimming pools, and the excitement of seeing a neon sign glowing at dusk. For many Americans now over 50, Route 66 is not history. It is memory. One of the most iconic parts of Route 66 was the roadside diner. These were not chain restaurants. They were local places with personality. Chrome counters, red leather booths, coffee always hot, jukebox music playing softly in the background. You could order pancakes at midnight or meatloaf at noon. Truck drivers sat beside traveling families. Teenagers shared milkshakes after football games. Waitresses knew regular customers by name. These diners were small pieces of American life. Simple, warm, human. And then there were the motels. Before giant hotel chains dominated the highways, Route 66 motels were unique. Some had glowing neon signs shaped like arrows or stars. Some promised air conditioning as if it were a miracle. Some had themes: cowboy style, desert style, western charm. Places like the Blue Swallow Motel in New Mexico became beloved landmarks. Each stop felt personal. You were not checking into a system. You were stepping into someone's story. Gas stations, too, had character. Service attendants came outside. They checked your oil, cleaned your windshield, asked where you were headed. Travel felt like a conversation, not a transaction. And then there were the attractions. Perhaps nothing defined Route 66 more than its wonderfully strange roadside stop. The world's largest rocking chair. Trading posts filled with souvenirs. Desert reptile farms. Indian curio shops. Vintage signs promising mystery caves or ghost towns ahead. Some were silly. Some were unforgettable. But all of them gave the road personality. America was introducing itself one billboard at a time. Route 66 also helped shape the rise of cities like Las Vegas and Los Angeles. Before Las Vegas became the glittering entertainment capital of the world, travelers passed through dusty desert roads leading west. Before Los Angeles symbolized Hollywood dreams, Route 66 brought thousands of newcomers chasing opportunity. The highway was not just connecting places. It was feeding ambition. It brought life to towns that might otherwise have remained invisible. Main streets flourished. Gas stations multiplied. Motels expanded. Souvenir shops opened. Small-town America thrived beside the road. For many communities, Route 66 was their economy, their identity, their front porch to the nation. Popular culture made the road even bigger. Songs were written about it. Perhaps most famously, Get Your Kicks on Route 66 turned the highway into music itself. Television shows and postcards spread its image across the country. Suddenly, Route 66 was not just a road people drove. It was a road people dreamed about. Even those who had never traveled it knew what it represented. Freedom, possibility, motion. It was the road where ordinary people could feel part of something larger. But like many golden ages, this one did not last forever. In the late 1950s and 1960s, America began building the interstate highway system. The goal made sense: faster travel, safer roads, more direct routes. Efficiency replaced wandering. The new interstates bypassed the small towns. Travelers no longer stopped for pie in little diners or spent the night at family-owned motels. They drove faster, stopped less, arrived sooner, and slowly Route 66 began to fade. Businesses that had depended on highway travelers started closing. Neon signs went dark. Motels emptied. Gas stations shut down. Entire towns felt forgotten. For many people, it was heartbreaking. A road that had once symbolized movement was now being left behind. In 1985, Route 66 was officially removed from the U.S. highway system. On paper, it was gone. But emotionally, it never disappeared. Because roads are not remembered by maps. They are remembered by stories. And Americans had too many stories to let Route 66 vanish. Preservation groups formed. Local communities restored old signs and historic buildings. Travelers returned, not because they needed the road, but because they wanted to feel it. Classic car enthusiasts began driving its surviving stretches. Photographers captured fading neon against desert sunsets. Families retraced the vacations their grandparents once took. The road became something rare. Not just transportation, but pilgrimage. Today, Route 66 lives in a different way. It lives in old postcards found in family drawers. It lives in black and white photographs of smiling children beside station wagons. It lives in songs played on quiet Sunday afternoons. It lives in memories of fathers driving with one arm out the window and mothers reading road maps folded across their lap. It lives in America's emotional memory. There is something powerful about places that remind us who we were. Route 66 does that. It reminds us of an America that felt slower, more personal, more connected to the journey itself. Of course, every generation romanticizes the past. Life was never perfect, but memory does not preserve perfection. It preserves feeling, and the feeling of Route 66 was freedom. Not freedom as a political slogan, but freedom as a deeply human experience. The freedom to leave, the freedom to begin again, the freedom to believe the next town might change your life. That feeling still matters, especially today. In a world that often moves too fast, Route 66 reminds us that sometimes the best parts of life happen between destinations. At the roadside diner, at the unexpected stop, at the sunset viewed from nowhere special, at the quiet motel where the neon sign buzzes softly in the dark. Those moments were never small. They were the journey. And maybe that is why people still love Route 66. Because it represents something modern life often forgets. That getting there is not always the point. Sometimes the road itself is the reason. The golden age of Route 66 may be over, but its spirit remains. Still stretching across desert. Still winding through old towns. Still whispering from rusted signs and faded postcards. Still asking us to slow down. Still inviting us to keep driving. And somewhere, just beyond the next bend, under an open American sky, the Mother Road is still waiting. Not for perfection, not for speed, but for one more traveler willing to believe that the journey matters. And perhaps, deep down, we all still are. If stories like this remind you of the America we all remember, subscribe to our channel and watch our previous videos. And if you enjoyed this journey, please leave a like. It truly helps us keep these stories alive.